Day 20. Learning from criticism. Few experiences affect people as deeply as criticism. Regardless of age, profession, or level of experience, most of us have felt the discomfort that comes when someone questions our decisions, points out our mistakes, or expresses a negative opinion about something we have done. In some cases, the criticism is constructive and well-intentioned. In others, it may be unfair, exaggerated, or delivered without much consideration for how it will be received. Yet regardless of its quality, criticism has a remarkable ability to trigger strong emotional reactions. Part of the reason for this lies in human psychology. We are social creatures, and for most of human history, belonging to a group was closely connected to survival. Acceptance brought security, while rejection carried significant consequences. Although modern life is very different, the emotional systems that evolved thousands of years ago continue to influence our behavior today. As a result, many people experience criticism, not simply as information, but as a threat. This helps explain why even highly capable individuals can become defensive when receiving feedback. The emotional reaction often occurs before rational analysis has a chance to begin. A comment about our work can feel like a comment about our worth. A critique of a decision can feel like a critique of our character. Without realizing it, we blur the line between what we have done and who we are. The distinction is important because personal growth becomes difficult whenever criticism is interpreted as a personal attack rather than a source of information. If every piece of feedback threatens our sense of identity, our natural response will be to defend ourselves. We may justify our actions, dismiss the opinion, or focus on proving that the other person is wrong. While this reaction is understandable, it often prevents us from learning something valuable. One of the most useful skills a person can develop is the ability to separate feedback from identity. This does not mean agreeing with every criticism or assuming that every opinion is correct. It simply means creating enough emotional distance to evaluate the information objectively. Imagine a business owner receiving feedback from customers. If every complaint is treated as a personal insult, improvement becomes almost impossible. The owner spends their energy defending existing decisions rather than understanding why customers are dissatisfied. On the other hand, if the feedback is examined carefully, patterns may begin to emerge. Some complaints may be unreasonable, but others may reveal genuine opportunities for improvement. The same principle applies to personal growth. Not all criticism deserves equal attention. Some criticism reflects genuine insight. Some reflects misunderstanding. Some reflects the biases, frustrations, or insecurities of the person delivering it. The challenge is learning to distinguish between these possibilities. This is where emotional maturity becomes valuable. When criticism arrives, most people instinctively ask themselves whether they like what they are hearing. A more useful question is whether there is something worth learning from it. This shift in perspective changes the entire experience. Instead of focusing exclusively on whether the criticism feels fair, attention moves toward whether it contains useful information. Even criticism delivered poorly can occasionally contain a valuable observation. Likewise, criticism delivered confidently can still be completely inaccurate. The goal is not to accept everything. The goal is to remain curious. Curiosity creates space for learning. Defensiveness usually closes that space. One reason criticism feels particularly painful is that it often targets areas where uncertainty already exists. If someone criticizes a quality we feel secure about, the comment may have little impact. However, if the criticism touches an insecurity we already carry, the emotional reaction tends to be much stronger. For example, a person who doubts their professional abilities may react strongly to criticism at work. Someone who feels uncertain about their appearance may become highly sensitive to comments about their physical image. In these situations, the criticism hurts not only because of what was said, but because it reinforces an existing fear. Understanding this dynamic can be incredibly useful. It allows criticism to become a source of self-awareness rather than simply a source of frustration. Sometimes the strongest emotional reactions reveal areas where deeper growth is needed. This does not mean the criticism is correct. It simply means the reaction itself may contain valuable information. Another important lesson is that criticism becomes unavoidable whenever a person decides to grow. The more visible your actions become, the more opinions you will encounter. People who start businesses receive criticism. People who pursue ambitious goals receive criticism. People who express ideas publicly receive criticism. Even individuals who achieve significant success often find themselves criticized by those who know very little about their circumstances. For this reason, trying to avoid criticism entirely is a losing strategy. A person who structures their life around avoiding disapproval will often limit their own potential. They may hesitate to pursue meaningful goals, avoid expressing genuine opinions, or constantly seek approval before making decisions. While this approach may reduce short-term discomfort, it usually comes at the cost of authenticity and growth. At some point, it becomes necessary to accept that criticism is not evidence that you are doing something wrong. In many cases, it is simply evidence that you are doing something visible. This realization can be surprisingly liberating. It allows you to stop measuring every decision according to how others might react and begin evaluating decisions according to your values, goals, and principles. Of course, this does not mean becoming indifferent to feedback. Wise people continue listening. They remain open to learning. They seek perspectives that challenge their assumptions. What changes is that they stop allowing every opinion to determine their self-worth. They understand that growth requires both humility and confidence. Humility allows them to recognize when criticism is accurate. Confidence allows them to continue moving forward when it is not. Finding the balance between these qualities is one of the hallmarks of maturity. Too much humility without confidence can lead to self-doubt. Too much confidence without humility can lead to arrogance. The most effective approach combines both. It allows a person to remain teachable without becoming dependent on external approval. As you continue this journey, consider your own relationship with criticism. Think about the situations where feedback has helped you improve and the situations where criticism affected you more deeply than expected. Reflect on the difference between useful observations and opinions that no longer deserve your attention. The goal is not to become immune to criticism. That would be unrealistic and perhaps even undesirable. The goal is to develop a healthier relationship with it, one that allows you to learn from valuable feedback without allowing every negative opinion to influence your sense of self. Because ultimately, criticism is neither an enemy nor a friend. It is information. Sometimes that information is useful. Sometimes it is not. Wisdom lies in learning the difference. Reflection questions. 1. How do you typically respond when someone criticizes you? 2. Are there particular types of criticism that affect you more strongly than others? 3. What insecurities might be influencing those reactions? 4. Can you think of a time when criticism helped you improve? 5. How can you become more open to useful feedback without becoming dependent on approval? Daily action step. Think about a piece of criticism you have received recently, or one that has stayed with you for some time. Write down what was said, then separate the emotional reaction from the information itself. Ask yourself whether there is anything useful you can learn from it, regardless of how it was delivered. Success affirmation. I remain open to learning while staying grounded in my values. I can accept useful feedback without allowing criticism to define my worth or determine my future.